Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's Black Hills Information Security webcast. We have Chris Traynor with us today, and he's going to do a webcast on the Illustrated Pentester Volume 5. Short stories, what it's like to work in security. And what that means is there's four other parts to this. There's a playlist on the Black Hills Information Security YouTube channel. And so if you want to go see parts 1 through 4, you absolutely can. All right, so Chris is joining us today. Chris likes to tell stories. Chris likes to teach. Chris likes to pen test. He likes to do the work that he does, and he likes to talk about the work that he does to you so you can learn from it and be able to gather nuggets of wisdom and say, like, how can I apply this to the work that I'm doing? All right, so I'm gonna go backstage. I'll be here. If you're in Discord, hey, thank you so much for being there. Make sure you check in for Hackett. If that doesn't make sense to you, we'll explain it at the end. If you're watching the recording, hello from the past. And thank you so much for spending your time with us today. I'm going to go backstage. Chris, it's all yours.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, everyone, for coming to the Volume 5 of the Illustrated Pentester. I appreciate you coming here. As Jason just said, there are 4 volumes that have preceded this. You could find them on the BHIS YouTube channel. So there's a playlist there, including all of those. You can go back and like those past ones, we've stuck to about 5 or 6 stories per edition. So there's already 20 different short stories out there. And this will be about 5 or 6 more of them. So the Illustrated Pen Tester, short stories of security. The reason why we do this is we like to learn by sharing stories, sharing experiences, and getting to understand things that each other do in our jobs and our roles to find out if it's something that we want to do, right? So, who am I? I am Chris Traynor. I'm a Black Hills information security pen tester. I also have my own organization, Ridgeback Infosec, which is how I build out my 2 classes that I teach through Anti-Siphon. It's offensive tooling for offensive tooling foundations and offensive tooling for operators. So those 2 classes are available. I'll share some information about that at the end of this. We don't want to talk about too much. Handful of certifications there. People like to see numbers and letters after your name whenever you do work. So that's why certifications are there and exist. But short stories. Why short stories? So I've said this with every one of these editions of the webcast is I read a book when I was very young called The Illustrated Man by Ray Bradbury. It's published way, way back in 1951, but it's basically a collection of 18 sci-fi short stories. Each one of them had a slightly different, unique title, slightly different and unique purpose or a moral of the story. But they were all in very short form, which kept it very good for me and everybody at a young age who read that book because we have very short attention spans. Not saying you guys don't have a short attention, do have a short attention span. You guys are great. You can listen to hours and hours of stories, I'm sure. But I like to talk for a very short time period. So on to a little bit of a disclaimer around these stories. I give this with every one of the webcasts here. So this is an anthology. It is not a collection, and I had to Google to know the difference between the 2 terms. So that means that even though I am telling all of these short stories, I may tell them in the first person. I may tell them secondhand. Not all of these stories come from me. They are not my own and unique and personal experiences in 100% of the time. I will not tell you based so that we can keep some anonymity. I will not tell you which story is me and which story belongs to another individual. But what I can tell you is that all of the stories that I give and I share, they come directly from contacts and people that I know and I trust. So there's some authoritative source providing these. They're not just made up tales coming from the ether just to try to get a point across. These are real things. And in a lot of cases, I've read the reports to where these stories come from to gain even more additional context and understanding in order to bring them to light best to you. Well, one of the main reasons why I like to try to do this is there were a few things that kind of struggled for me as I got into security initially. One of those was what's it going to be like, right? So I spent about a decade doing web dev and testing and scripting type of work before coming to the security world. And you really don't have a concept of what those roles could be, right? And there's so many different facets of security and type of work that's done. A lot that I have not ever even done myself, but hopefully this in a broad way can give you an understanding of some of the situations you might run into in the security world. And hopefully that piques your interest or At the worst, it sends you screaming and yelling in the other direction. You don't want to be a part of this world at all. That's cool too. But hopefully, this helps share some of those experiences for you. So, without much more delays in this, let's get right on into it. Our first story up here. And don't hit me too bad on the titles. I'm not a super creative person, but I try to give them little fun titles in here. So our first story out there is Be Careful Out There, B with two E's. And you'll find out why the pun. Mostly because I'm a dad and I have to make terrible pun jokes occasionally or whenever I get the opportunity. So our first scenario here is actually a story coming from the defensive side of things rather than the offensive actions that happen. So in this situation, there was a news article that came out. They tend to come out every day, weirdly. There was a news article that came out on a security focused website. And that news article talked about an attack that was going against Bing, which was just SEO poisoning. Nothing super crazy or special about SEO poisoning. It's been going on for a long time. And if you're unfamiliar with what that is, it's essentially an attacker trying to game the algorithm or game the search engine into promoting their site, their malicious site, above the valid sites. So if they're trying to mask their intentions, they're going to do some domain squatting, capture a domain that's very close or similar to the organization they're trying to masquerade as. And then they'll do SEO poisoning against search engines to try to elevate their site to be responding before others in the search results. And I don't know how many times you have gone to Google or Bing and jumped to page 3 or 4. Most human beings do not do that. They tend to stick to that top page for the results. So if you can pull off SEO poisoning, it can put you in a very advantageous position as an attacker. In this case, they were focused on trying to promote a malicious site that was targeting for a VMware related utility tool. So the news article said there was SEO poisoning against Bing that was promoting this VMware utility. It gets, if you go to that malicious site, if you get tricked into this, which happens all the time, the victim will get a Trojanized version of the installer. So it looks very legitimate. It actually does do the function that the regular legitimate software would do. But bundled inside of it is a piece of malware. And this particular news article was saying the Bumblebee malware. I don't know who named it. I don't know why they named it that way. But the Bumblebee malware was bundled inside of this VMware Tools utility. And this has been known for a while, this piece of malware. It's been around for at least a few years, and it's used by attackers to, as a staging point to issue command and control channels and then to drop further payloads and do some post-exploitative, if that's a word, activities on that target system. So you're a user out there, you're trying to find this VMware utility, you don't look closely at the links and you end up with a malicious downloaded installer, and then they start doing command and control actions after that. Sounds like the article should end there, right? We've all learned a lesson. Don't download untrusted software, check your links, right? Nothing crazy there. But where this story kind of stands out is there was an actual customer or a client, right, where a user went out, they saw that news article, and then they went back and they said, well, there's a malicious version of the installer out there. I should go get the real one before that gets destroyed. So they went out looking for the real one after reading the news article. They wound up actually getting the malicious one that the news article warned them about. So they did actually click on the wrong thing, download the wrong thing, and then they brought it into their environment. And within, and this is the news article went live like back in May for this particular thing, for the one that this is talking about. And the person downloaded this like within 2 or 3 hours after that news article went live. And then their environment was compromised because of it. So the SOC gets involved, the Security Operations Center gets involved and starts locking this machine down, isolating it, and really in the backhand of the discussion and trying to figure out how this happened. The employee said, yeah, I saw the news article that warned against it and I tried to get the right thing and apparently I didn't. Now, there's whole different ways that you can safely install malware-laden software for analysis and things like that. That's not what this person did. They put it directly on their host machine. And immediately what you see here is a screenshot here are some of the commands that were being issued from this piece of malware. And it was trying a bunch of things. It was trying to do scheduled tasks so that it can maintain persistence. It was trying to unblock certain files so that they can be executed using PowerShell commands or CMD commands. So a lot is going on with this, and really, when I talk through and look through some of the information around this, uh, this piece of malware just tries to do it all, right? It's not particularly quiet. It's hoping that you're not watching, right? So if you're getting alerts but you're not taking action on it, it's hoping that that is the situation with a lot of organizations. That's really how it goes. Now, this is a real screenshot of actual commands that this piece of malware does run out. The redacted part of them, it's not anything identifiable. It's just particularly, let's say, vulgar language. For some reason, they decided to name their DLLs with vulgar language. So I tried to be a little bit nice and keep this PG-13 for our webcast here. But over here in the bullet points, there's actually an even older article than what came out in May of this year, and there's one that comes out from the DEFR report that talks particularly about this issue in a little bit more depth. Some of these domains over here, these are some of the known domains that it tries to establish command and control through, and these are some of the known uh, files and binaries that are actually tries to be executed by this piece of malware, just for a bit of information for you out there to learn from. So if digital forensics, incident response, SOC stuff is your thing, I set up this little tiny URL down here, just tinyurl.com and then SEO-B with two E's. And that'll bring you out there to the DFIR report article that's out there. It can be a really fun thing to try to read through these things, particularly if you're on the offensive side. So the article written for it is very much on the defensive perspective, since it's the DFIR report site that goes through it. But it can really help you if your thing is you want to do red teaming, if you want to do uh, or purple teaming and stuff like that. Not so much the pen testing world because you're not usually dropping these sort of things on an authorized pen test. But if you are trying to be a little sneaky about stuff, doing some phishing engagements and stuff like that, this sort of insight can really help you. So you probably, for your payload or your malicious file that you're trying to drop, this is not particularly, I wouldn't say as elegant. It's effective. It's not particularly elegant because it does start just blasting every type of command out there to try to maintain persistence and gain more access and things like that. Uh, so, moral of this story for be careful out there is if you go and read an article that says, hey, something's wrong out there, there's SEO poisoning going on for Bing, probably don't open Bing, then search for that thing, and then download that thing that the article warned you about, and then install that thing, right? So, a lot of things can be a little bit of awareness there can help you out a bit. Um, so as always, be careful out there, right? Our next story up for this edition of the Illustrated Pen Tester is called Flight Status File Not Found. So in this one, I kind of do like this because it starts off with a really good thing. Similar to how the last story started. It started with somebody reading an article to be informed, reading an article to try to make sure that they can be secure and they're trying to do the right thing. So in this story, we have an airline company that's trying to perform a ransomware simulation on their environment. That's a very good thing, right? They're trying to take the necessary measures to make sure their security processes, their people, and their mechanisms inside their environment are set up and configured correctly to respond or be resilient to a ransomware situation, especially as an airline. This can be very bad. So they wanted a ransomware simulation, But they wanted to make sure it was a controlled test, a very prudent measure to take when you're going through this. And you don't want to just hire a firm out there and say, hey, try to ransomware our whole environment. That's probably a bad thing. So they wanted a controlled test. So the customer selected a single folder out there in the environment to perform this simulation against. So the tester agrees to this. They go through all of the authorization. They got their get out of jail, piece of paper sign that says this is authorized, and we're going to stick to this very slim scope of this one particular folder and see what happens if we conduct some ransomware against it. So the tester goes out there to that folder, one specific thing, runs some custom scripts that are out there that were created by the tester, and then it just creates a whole bunch of fake files. Basically fills this folder with a bunch of stuff, right? So it wouldn't do you much good to try to ransomware an empty folder. It's not really beneficial, not close to real world. So they created a whole bunch of fake files, and then they encrypted all of those files. So up to this point, very good engagement. We got a proactive customer taking security measures to make sure the environment is secure. They've got a controlled specific folder to take this simulation against, and you've got a tester who's focused only in that area and staying in scope. Now, where this kind of goes a little bit sideways for the engagement is the customer had a managed SOC. So if you don't know what a managed SOC is, it's basically a third party that sits out there and does your security operations center activities for you. A lot of organizations, they choose to go with a managed SOC for one way or another. They don't want the hassle. They don't understand the complexity. They don't want to staff it, 24 hours around the clock every single day. So they go out to these managed SOC providers to provide that service. Except the managed SOC detected this activity. Again, another gold star, thumbs up, well done. But the managed SOC said there's a whole bunch of files that got created all of a sudden, and these got encrypted. This looks like ransomware. So their next initial action from that was we're going to isolate the file server, lock it down, right? Try to stop the ransomware attack before it gets out of control. That's a good thing sometimes, yes? Well, in this case, not really. So they had a bit of a whoopsie here. The managed SOC had a process where it was if you detect ransomware, lock out the system and isolate it. The problem here was they locked out and isolated the entire file server. And that exact file server was something that the booking agents for the airline required access to in order to book flights, schedule things going in, schedule things going out of who knows how many airports around the world or around the state or however large or small the airline was. So we've got a file server that's isolated. A single point of failure like that ultimately caused about a 30 to 60-minute delay in flights. Doesn't seem like too much, right? The 30, 60-minute delay in flights is a difference for customers of missing their connection or not. It's a difference of rebookings. It's a difference of pushing back flights later in that day. But in this one case, that managed SOC locked out, isolated the file server, essentially took it offline. They basically performed a DOS on themselves and made the system unresponsive because nobody could reach it then. So what you really want to look for is for this story and what to take away from it is we've got customers out there that are trying to do the right thing, right? They have a managed SOC. They want to do a ransomware engagement. They picked a very specific scope. But where there was a disconnect here is that because it was a managed SOC and the customer didn't exactly know the processes that were established with that service, their process was isolate immediately, figure it out later. And the problem that occurred here, obviously, the impact is if you don't know what your processes are and you don't have that communication before engagements to loop in these involved parties, especially for ransomware or pen tests or red teams, to give awareness, this is happening and it's in this area. We just want to know if we detect it, do that monitor only mode type of thing. Then you're going to wind up with a bit of an issue. Thankfully, this was a very small inconvenience in the grand scale of things, and it was relatively quickly resolved. So a positive on the process side. The SOC locked it down. They contacted their customer and said we've detected ransomware, and it only took a little bit of time for them to tie that back together. So gold star for the customer, good work for the managed SOC, but it might be worthwhile for if you're using a managed SOC or you have your own, that you establish a process that you understand your own systems and you do some kind of flagging on those to say these are critical systems that if they do go offline or if they are getting attacked, our gut initial snap response cannot be just take it offline, just isolate it, put it out to the corner, and don't let anybody interact because your impact to your business could be greater than the impact that you're trying to head off. So keep in mind of that. I did talk on the back end of hearing this story. I did talk to a couple people from our own managed SOC that BHIS does, and one of the things that we do as we onboard customers into that is we have a process that flags your critical systems. So there's no situation where if a critical system is being attacked, that our managed SOC would ever take that offline immediately. All right, we will make sure that there's an immediate escalated phone call to try to head off situations just like this. And if you've been in a SOC, you've been in this position before, if you've spent any real time there. So our next story coming up here is a physical pen test engagement. I see a message in the Discord there about that last story is just when your sock dosses you, right? Yeah, that does happen. Um, I don't want to make it seem like we're discouraging those sort of engagements at all. They're very good engagements to have, and it was a relatively quick resolution to that issue. But you definitely want to make sure. And if anything, this test pointed out an issue with the process. So pen tests, red teams, purple team engagements, any and all of these things, you're not always only looking for the technical problems. You're looking for the process breakdowns, things that can wind up hurting your organization more or things that go unnoticed and don't get detected. And that can be a bit of an issue. Yeah. I see some other comments in there. So with airlines, obviously safety is an extremely high priority, right? Um, so it's good that they're taking these proactive measures. But on to our next story here. I said these are short stories. We're trying to keep them to about 6 minutes, 6, 7 minutes a piece, roughly. So next story up is called Uniform Code of Cloning. So this is a physical pen test engagement here. Physical pen test engagement for this story here. Initial reconnaissance of this organization uh, and initial discussions with the point of contact identified that all employees use a mobile app on their phone to perform any of the actual access to the building. So it uses NFC, which you can argue left, right, and center about the security implications of NFC being enabled on your phone. I personally disable that. I don't like having it enabled on my phone for a variety of reasons. But they were trying to solve a problem of not having physical access cards. They wanted to just have their employees swipe their phone against the reader and be able to get into the building that way and control it through an app. A little bit of a smoother process. Don't have to worry too much about badges, whether or not those badges are scannable, they're working, things like that. And you can rapidly disable somebody's access pretty quickly on that front. So they're trying to solve a problem by using technology and advancements with a mobile app. So, from first appearances for the physical pen test here, obviously one of your goals, your primary goal, is to gain access to the physical building. So, if the only way to do that is using an employee's phone, we can't, within the ethical good bounds of an engagement, steal somebody's phone, right? Their actual physical device that they hold and they contact their kids and contact their loved ones with. We don't want to steal that just to be able to scan things in. So we're not in the business of doing pickpocketing engagements that are out there. So this is at first glance made it look like access to the physical buildings using a valid scanning technique would be relatively impossible, right? Did the testers stop there and just kind of give up? No, absolutely not. A good determined tester is going to try a few different things. So what they do is they just sat back and waited. They did some more reconnaissance and watched the environment around. So when you do a physical pen test, one of the things you're going to wind up doing before you ever try to step foot in a building is you're just going to sit there and watch. You're going to stalk them. You're going to do a little watching from outside the building. Not anything where you're following people back to their homes or anything like that. But you're going to keep your eyes on the employees. What are their behaviors? What kind of stuff? What kind of attire is the generally accepted attire of the organization? Are there particular times of the day where people are coming and going? Are there security guards? You're kind of trying to take notes on all of these things, right? So you're almost trying to do it like it's a heist movie. You're trying to keep track of everything. But something that the tester notices from paying very close attention is the organization hired a third party to do all the cleaning of their building. It's not an uncommon thing. They have cleaning companies that come into these large office buildings and they just go through every room. They clean out the trash, they vacuum. They tend to do these things early in the morning or late at night after work is done. So you know this tester had been sitting around before people usually show up to work or staying well after. And they noticed that this outside contracted cleaning crew, they weren't swiping their phones on these scanners. They had actual physical cards that they were using. So he thought that was a little weird. And after watching them more and more, he saw that absolutely none of those cleaners were using their physical devices. So they ruled out that it was everybody's accesses through a mobile app. And they started saying employees' accesses through the mobile app, but it looks like they issue cards out to these contracting companies. What do we do then? We put in a long range RFID reader and we jam it into a backpack. Yes, this is a picture directly from the report that this came from. So you give a little powered, teeny tiny backpack, not very big, and you put a little power source in it and you start walking around right in front of the buildings. So I actually did look at this report here, and I actually included with the report was a video where normally with a physical pen test you send at least two testers. One tester put this backpack on and walked over and just walked within range. Didn't even have to be that close. Walked within range of one of the cleaners coming in and out of the doors. So when they would be taking their badge in and out, and the other person recorded them, and they wound up archiving this footage as supporting data for the report and providing it with it. So they skimmed the card with this long range RFID reader by just having the backpack on. These are those kind of covert type of things that you do on a physical pen test that can be pulled off with very little issue. So they skimmed and cloned the card. They cloned it to a Flipper Zero, which if you're not familiar with what Flipper Zeros are, they can capture and replay any number of wireless communications from any number of devices. You can do it with uh, remote controls. You can just control your TV. You could capture and replay sometimes for your garage door opener, or if we see in this case for the RFID reader of a building. We've even seen instances as well. I'm not advocating for this, and I'm not saying it's necessarily wrong. But if you go to conferences, sometimes they have different treasure hunts to go around, and you scan these RFID readers around the conference floors. Well, they've seen instances where somebody would bring a Flipper Zero, they'd scan every one of these places, and then they would just replay these same codes to all of their buddies. So they wouldn't have to go around the conference floor to every table or every hidden location. And then they were all getting ahead in that scanning thing. So a lot of utility out of Flipper Zeros to play around with. So they cloned this RFID, didn't even need a physical card. They just ported it over to a Flipper Zero, and they found that that worked perfectly fine. Walk right up to the building's RFID reader, replay the code, bam, physical pen tester in. But what they thought was even a little bit more, not unnerving, but a little strange, is that once they were inside of the actual building, there was no restrictions as to access at all. There was no other RFID readers that were really around the building to say, hey, this is the server room. Perhaps the cleaning crew shouldn't have access to the server room. Or in the rare cases where there were an RFID reader, that same cleaning code seemed to access everything. So yes, I see in the chat there multipass. So Lulu Dallas multipass. That's essentially what happened here. They just provided this one code, and then they, maybe the cleaning crew needed to dust off the server racks too. I don't know. All right, sometimes you do need to do that. Add some compressed air, and they just did that. So while an organization did think through the process of saying we want ease of use and ease of control for our employees to gain access, they failed to realize that the essential action of cleaning the building and the entire facility meant cleaning crews needed to have a large degree of access. And they issued out them physical cards that could easily be skimmed. Now, how do you solve that problem? Obviously, inside of the building, there should be completely restricted areas. And I think I just exited out of my own PowerPoint presentation, but I'm going to come right back to it here. Let me bring it right back up. That's the danger of doing things live here, right? We'll bring it right back to here. When you start waving your hands around, you smack your escape keyboard, things go crazy. So Ryan, yep, I see it. It's right back. Thank you so much, sir. So we've got a situation where the actual practical use of these cards, the need to clean the facilities, necessitates access. And just because you haven't thought of that third party access to it, and you have a bit of an issue, right? It's not necessarily a misconfiguration; it's intentional. But in testing, a lot of times what we do for security stuff is we don't try to come up with these new fancy 0-day things. A lot of times we just try to abuse the protocols and the stuff that's in place for how it's intended to be used, right? We see this on internal networks for technical engagements all the time. It's not necessarily that it's a misconfiguration. It's just simply how it's designed to be used. We're just using it from a bad person's perspective. And just seeing some of the gifts and stuff in there. The need to clean the facilities. Yes, thank you, Ryan, for calling that out. It's a good quote. You can slap that on when we share this out. So the uniform code of cloning, right, is if somebody needs to get in, then anybody can get in. Here we've got another interesting short story here that we're calling Factory Defect. So here is an external network pen test, not uncommon whatsoever. We're just worried about the externally internet-facing systems that are out there on the open internet for an organization. So company comes to security organization and says, I want to do an external network pen test. Here's the scope. Here's the range of systems. They provide that to the consulting firm or to their own pen testers that they have in-house. And they say, get to work, start seeing if we have any vulnerabilities here. In this particular engagement, initial scanning of those externally facing systems picked up that one of them had a externally facing camera service that was out there. So security cameras, but it had an external service so that you could authenticate into, or it was completely unauthenticated. Either way, the tester was able to gain access to these security cameras that, well, they were providing security, weirdly enough, in the name. And so, as any good pen tester would do inside the organization, is once they were in the organization, they realized two things. One, the device in which had the externally facing camera service that was then compromised was dual homed, meaning that it had a network interface card configured so that it had an external IP address as well as a direct internal IP address so that it can be accessed internally. So there's a pathway inside the network. But something else that was a little bit more troubling with this engagement, even though the dual homeness of that externally facing device is probably a concern, is that they started watching the cameras. And when they actually started watching the cameras to see what they were able to see, and I've heard this on many tests, pen testing a medical institution. We've had testers that have gotten into cameras that are inside surgical suites and they've seen people open on the table during surgeries. Uh, Seen issues where inside of an organization, anybody can access security cameras, anybody with access to the internal network unauthenticated, and they were just watching meetings happening around the building, even internationally. In this case, the security professional pen tester started watching the cameras to see, well, now that I have access, is there anything sensitive that I'm not supposed to be seeing? Is there a patient open on the table that might violate some sort of HIPAA laws that we need to be concerned about, right? In this case, the cameras were actually pointed at a factory. Nothing really on the face wrong about that, except for one real singular problem. The customer for this pen test did not own any factory facilities. They did not operate out of any factory facilities. They did not do any business with a factory facility. They didn't actually build anything, essentially, right? So they're watching a, a factory security monitoring system, and they can see all around this, but their customer actually doesn't have any of this stuff. So they started scratching their head. They reached out to the point of contact and said, "Hey, I'm watching this. It looks like this IP address is actually over out in this country," which was another problem. It turned out that the IP address that was externally facing was actually registered outside of the national borders for this pen tester, and the customer definitely wasn't operating in that nation. So they contacted their point of contact and said, "Hey, I've got access to a camera system. It's dual homed, so there's access to the internal network, but you don't have these facilities as something you do for a business. What's going on here?" And after a little bit of back and forth and discovery process, they quickly found out that they were provided the wrong external scope, right? Another little whoopsie on the engagement. So it's the customer's responsibility. A couple things went wrong here. Customer's responsibility after rules of engagement discussion and signing of a statement of work is to provide an accurate list of the scope, whether that's externally facing systems, internally facing systems. If it's a phishing engagement, who is a valid target to go after and who cannot be sought after in a phishing engagement, and just basically put the guardrails on and guide what should be touched and should not be. So the customer provided an externally facing IP address in the scope that they did not own. This is not theirs whatsoever. But then the tester going through this process only discovered that it was not related to their customer after they had already successfully exploited a vulnerability, gotten inside a security system, and essentially acted internationally against an organization that was not supposed to be their target. So a couple concerns and flags go up there. But the big thing is the intent not to do harm here, right? So the tester noticed this, stopped their activities immediately, disconnected from everything immediately, documented everything that actually happened with a timeline of what went on, and they provide that to the customer. Now, why did the customer have the wrong externally facing systems? I'm not sure how many people listening are sysadmins or how many people have been inside of a large organization that has a presence around an entire country. It's really hard to manage assets. I've been on the backside of that where you have to identify all the assets outside your organization and inside your organization. Getting that whole asset list and the whole configuration management database is one of the most mundane, boring, and difficult tasks that you can perform in an organization. It's not fun. It's not easy to keep up to date. And when you're dealing with external systems, particularly if you're dealing with cloud deployed external systems where you're using services like AWS or Azure or GCP, is a lot of times those third-party cloud services, they'll just rotate your IP, right? Unless you're paying very specifically to have a static hold over an IP address inside of their that service's owned block of IPs, chances are that IP address is changing fairly frequently. So likely what happened is that a sysadmin went through and said, here's all of my externally facing IP addresses at this point in time. And then whatever time period passed between providing that scope and the test actually happening, chances are that IP address just got completely rotated. So they weren't using that at all anymore for a cloud service. How do you avoid this on an external pen test? Is you want to try to get your scope not with IP addresses, but using actually fully qualified domain names. Full FQDNs will help you avoid this because the resolving of those FQDNs will be accurate to the IP address at the time of testing that's assigned to that externally facing asset. You can go back and forth, and I've had customers go in both directions where they can only provide the IP address because sometimes they just don't know the FQDNs to provide at the time, or customers that'll argue against providing FQDNs for whatever reason. If you don't, if you're one of the points of contact that's responsible for doing this, know that this can be an issue that you might fall into. If you provide an IP address, you use cloud-based services, that IP address gets rotated without your knowledge, you could wind up with a pen tester that you've authorized who is now accidentally attacking a third party, right? This can be very bad. Luckily, there was no damage done or reported as done in this engagement here, and the tester handled it very well as the point of contact, where everything was documented. This is a nice little type of thing where every tester at BHIS has this report as you go placard sitting right there in front of them whenever they work. Uh, so you're always reporting, I got access at this date and time, I did this action, I did that action, and you're really documenting down to a T. Next up for our short stories of security is we have challenge not accepted. And I like this one. This is a fun one. Um, Another physical pen test here. So we've had a couple physical pen test stories, a couple defensive stories out there for this go around. And certainly, if you go back to volumes 1, 2, 3, and 4 of this, you'll get a mix of web app stuff, uh, internal, external networks. You'll get some red team stuff, some social engineering, phishing stuff, as well as physical pen tests. So you get a good mix across all of these. But for our last one here, we have another physical pen test occurring. Nothing too crazy about the access here, right? So in this particular engagement, one of the easiest things you can do on a physical pen test is you perform that sitting back monitoring of the environment before you ever try to engage. Similar to how you do with a network, you're scanning the environment, see what's out there, see how things are behaving. And in this particular one, like a lot of organizations, tailgating is a technique that is extremely low tech, and it's not uncommon to be successful on a physical pen test. So if you are observing employees being very lackadaisical about their accessing their building that has a lock on it, so an employee will oftentimes scan their badge and hold the door open for somebody running up, or they're just scan their badge, they walk in, and the door takes a very long time to kind of close. It's on a very tight tension on its automatic closure. So there's several seconds there where you have time to cross a short distance and grab the door. In this case, both were possible. The doors closed very, very slowly, but also employees didn't particularly mind this physical pen tester just kind of walking up as they were walking in and just holding the door for them and then just walk in with them. Nobody really particularly challenged that engagement. So this isn't particularly as technical, as big of an issue as that previous story of the pen test where they had a mobile app with NFC enabled, but then you had to find the third-party contracting cleaners, you had to skim them with a long-range RFID reader, then load it onto a Flipper Zero, and then replay. Like none of those steps needed to be done here. The tester simply was able to tailgate their way in, easy access. And I like this because it kind of highlights that the repeated idea of advanced persistent threats is attackers and testers, we're only advanced as we need to be to get the job done. If you're going to hold the door open for me, I'll walk right through. So once inside on this engagement for this physical pen test, the tester went around to every single door and realized that every single door inside the office and externally, they could actually breach the door with simply a can of air. So one of the things that you wind up with, I'll just use a little duster can thing here to show you. One of the things you do with a physical pen test is you carry around a little bit of compressed air with you. And what you wind up doing is you notice that this little tiny straw right here, I don't know if it's focusing on it too well. I'll hold it in front of my very shiny and bright head, so maybe the red will show through. This tiny, tiny little straw that's there is capable of slipping through those tiny little cracks in the doors of an office. And one of the things that physical pen testers will do is they'll take a little bit of compressed air, a little can of air that you use to clean your keyboard or something else, and they'll have that in their bag. They'll pop it out, put that little straw attachment on it, slide it through the door right on the other side of the door where there's motion sensors that usually when you walk past the other side of the door, it automatically unlocks so you can then exit the controlled space. If you blast a little bit of compressed air right close enough to those sensors, if they're too sensitive, the door will pick it up as motion and unlock immediately. Now, another thing that's noting that usually if it's responsive to that can air attack is that any employees walking within even a pretty large distance. So normally you don't want a door to unlock unless somebody's like right up against the door. It's very clear that they're trying to exit. But if somebody's walking by 5, 6, 8 feet away from the door, you definitely don't want the angle of that sensor to be too tilted out to where it's picking up that motion and unlocking automatically. So in this case, for the inside office doors and everything, the can of air as well as the sensors were a little bit too sensitive and a little too tilted out so that if an employee in a restricted area was just walking by, not trying to exit, that door unlocked as well, and the tester was able to walk straight through. Somebody put into the chat there, Deviant Ullman does have a lot of great YouTube videos out there on physical bypass mechanisms. If you want to check them out, I highly recommend doing a Google and looking through YouTube for that. There's a lot of good. I think somebody was that. There's a video somebody just put out. Jason just put that up. Is Deviant Ullman has a video about breaking into a bank with whiskey, and I haven't watched this one, but just gleaming from the title there, I'm betting that maybe perhaps he just blows some whiskey through the door and triggers a sensor. I don't know. Watch the video to find out. I know I'm going to right after this. So, challenge not really accepted here, right? Not a particularly challenging issue to get into the environment, but what actually makes this story even a little bit more interesting is that once inside the environment, things became a bit more challenging. So the tester got inside of this facility, got inside of the actual organization's building, and he was challenged. So gold star to the employees, gold star to the company for challenging the actions. The problem is that one of the key tenets of being a physical pen tester is you take all the measures you can to not be detected and not be challenged. And then even when you are detected and you are challenged, you do your absolute best to convince the person challenging you that they shouldn't worry about you. You're not a threat. You're actually just another employee or you're performing a valid authorized action. Now, all the while, as a caution to this, if you're ever going on to a physical on-site, you should always have a secondary person who can monitor and record or monitor and document what's happening and when so that everything has a third party objective view of any situation or encounter with employees. But you should always have a piece of paper that is signed statement of work, get out of jail free card, so that if things start to escalate too far out of control where security gets involved, they get a little rough with you, or if the actual police department gets called out and you're facing possible arrests, that you have on your person at all times a piece of paper that says I'm authorized to do this. Here's several points of contact, not one, but several points of contact at the organization who can vouch for me so that you can possibly not get arrested and go to jail for this, even if you aren't convicted and bailed out later. just getting arrested can lead to some problems for you. In this case, the tester was inside the building, and several times employees came up to them. On multiple occasions, the tester was able to convince employees to let them into a secured space after the employee already exhibited suspicion of them being there and that they shouldn't be there. So he was able to talk his way out of this and convince people. It takes a very special person to be able to lie bold-faced to somebody like that and then also succeed in this. In another situation, on the same engagement in the same building, the tester was caught raking locks in plain view on locked doors. So taking a lock picking kit and just trying to pick the locks. And he was in plain view of other employees. And he just kind of, as people walked by, he just kind of said, "Oh, good morning." And he cheerful, happy, and engaging, not trying to be sneaky, not trying to be, weird about it, just being social. And there's a weird psychological thing that hits with people is that if you are open and social and you start that interaction with them rather than them first being able to accuse you of wrongdoing, that they think that you're more open and that you should be there. So he just kind of said good morning and acted like nothing was going on, nothing was out of the ordinary, and the person just psychologically accepted it and moved on, didn't want to press any further. Another situation in this very same test is he was engaging with an employee at the company, and the employee had stated very clearly that they were been told never to let anybody near their computers but them. They knew this. They got the training. They even remembered the training, which is a far stretch for a lot of people. They remember the training and then they reiterated, "I'm not supposed to let anybody touch else near my computer." And this tester was so convincing in their interactions and so engaging and exhibiting trust. I'm going to try to stop just short of calling them con artist level of uh of a, not illusion but deception, is that they were able to con this person into letting them access their computer physically right there in front of them anyway, which is a big no-no. And then as the last engagement of this test, the tester was actively taking pictures to prove they had access inside of a building to a certain degree. So they were taking pictures of an employee's office, and the employee was approaching, who occupies that office typically for that room, came up to the tester, challenged them about taking pictures into their office. "What are you doing? Why are you taking pictures of my office? You're not supposed to be doing that. Not supposed to be doing any of that." And the tester was still able to talk their way out of being thrown out of the building because he turned it around on the person and challenged them right back, because on their desk had post-it notes of credentials right there as a sticky note. So we always know that sticky note credentials are not a good thing. Anything underneath of your keyboard is probably not a good move. It's not a particularly secure place. So by turning the tables around on this employee and making them a little fearful that they weren't complying with security standards, so they had no ground to stand on to then challenge him, they were able to actually make them back off. So when you're a physical pen tester, when this is a position that you're interested in, if you're trying to do this as on an engagement as a role, always make sure that you have your get out of jail free card, because if you do get challenged, the engagement doesn't end there. You still have room to push back on employees, to test their resilience to your unauthorized access to certain areas. And in every case for this test, while challenged multiple times, this tester proved that they were still able to just persist access, right? Just because they were that good. So these can be really fun engagements to get on, as long as you know when to try to stop so that you're not violating any laws. Okay. So that's a very, very good, fun one. I will say I normally don't say if it's my test or not, because I try to just jump between first, second, and third person tellings of these. I am not good enough to lie like this to somebody's face. This was not me. I'll state that very clearly. I cannot talk my way out of it as gracefully as this particular tester did. Um, I'm good in some things, yes, right there. And liar, liar, I can't lie, right? I mean, it's hard for me to even keep a surprise away from like my family and stuff. Is I break down on it. So, um, with that, that was short story number five. Like I said, we try to keep these right to five because for some reason 6 7 minutes go by and we are for each one and we're right towards the end of the hour. If you enjoyed these stories, go back to the link. I'll try to get Jason or Ryan or somebody. There was the playlist on YouTube on the Black Hill stuff. That was a playlist of the previous four. This recording will be part of that playlist shortly whenever we get it chopped up. Go back, listen to volumes one, two, three, and four for other fun stories about security. And for me, where you can find me is a few different places coming up now. I have two classes that are always in rotation: offensive tooling foundations and offensive tooling for operators. I've recently reworked both classes. I'll be at the next time I'm going to be talking at an event is going to be at B-Sides Greenville. When is that? Next week. Next week in B-Sides Greenville, I'm be doing my pen test pains talk. And then I'll be doing training at Wild West Hacking Fest Deadwood. That'll be my offensive tooling operators 2 day class. The in person for that class is sold out, but there are virtual seats and unlimited virtual seats for that. So you can take a look at that class if you're not already sick of hearing my voice. And then about a month later in Charleston, South Carolina, I'm going to be doing two events back to back. Simply CyberCon, which is an amazing event being put together by Jerry Auger. He's bringing pre-con training, a number of training classes out there. I know Hayden from Black Hills Information Security will also be doing a class there as well, in person only for that. And he's going to be doing the defensive side. And for me, I'm going to be doing my offensive tooling foundations class there, in person for those only. And then if you are in the Charleston, South Carolina area, on November 7th, I will be doing a free workshop the night before for offensive tools and offensive labs and demos and stuff like that for a couple hours. So you can check those things out. If you don't feel like remembering all that, you can just go to Ridgeback Infosec/events. I always keep that up to date with everything that I have coming up, where I'll be for talks, for trainings, and so on. So hopefully you guys enjoyed, took a few points, morals of the story away from this. Appreciate you guys all showing up for this. Deb, Jason, Ryan, I see you guys lined up in here. Is there anything that you guys want to jump in? I'll try to drop a link right in the chat for the events page as we get going here.
Yeah, I definitely want people to check in for Hackett if they haven't. Hackett is our way of keeping track of the people who come to our webcast, to engage live in Discord, to say thank you so much and send you rewards. And the reason why we want you in Discord, not just for, hey, I registered for the webcast, I've done like 100 of these, is because Discord is where the community talks all the rest of the time. So you may be here for the 1 hour webcast, but for the other days of the week and the other hours of the day, the community is sharing knowledge constantly, and we would love for you to be a part of that. And so the first step is to get in Discord and engage. So it's our way of rewarding you for engagement. So Chris, if you could sum up everything you talked about today in one last thing, we'll do that, and then we'll finish and we'll do post-show banter. But Chris, if you could sum up everything today in one final thought, what would it be?
Oh, one final thought. Okay. So, stories is how we learn, right? Most people, they can't just look at a technical thing and pick it up right away. It takes stories and experiences to actually understand how to apply knowledge in a good way, in an ethical way, in an authorized way, and understand what you can do in this world of security and what you can probably try to get away with. So, give things a shot.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for sharing your knowledge today with the InfoSec community, and we appreciate you being here. We know you have a lot of things you could have done today, but you joined us. And so we appreciate that. And we hope you join us again for another webcast. We have another one next week and the week after, and then Wild West Hack and Fest, and then another one the week after that, another one the week after that. We love doing this. We love showing up, and we love being able to help you achieve your goals and things. If you ever need us for a pen test, red team, threat hunt, red team, I already said that, continuous pen testing, active SOC, or any other work that we do, we would love to help support you at your organization. And with that, that's it for right now. Bloop, 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 bloop. All right, everybody, we're in post-show banter. Thank
Good
you
job,
so
Chris.
much if you're sticking around. I think some people, Chris, how many of our clients do you think come here wondering if they're going to be who you talk about?
Oh,
Why?
well, I know that there's some recent clients. I mentioned that I was doing this, and they do show up for a bunch of our webcasts, not just for this. But I do try to always obscure
Oh,
who it's
yeah.
about, right? So I never try to give the tester's name or the organization name. Everything's kind of obscured. So understand that if you are here and you are a BHIS customer organization, we do value you and thank you so much for paying me. But we always try to take everything that we do as trimmed down, as non-identifiable as possible, and always, as BHIS has done for years and years and years, try to build and give that back to the community in some kind of information. So hopefully nobody heard their story on here and,
So
and
a
give me an
tip,
angry phone call.
I don't know
But
if
yeah.
I don't know if John ever told you this, but one of the things that John does, and I picked up on it because I did not at one point, was change the industry. Just a simple change of the industry because I was talking about a bank one time and I was saying this thing about a bank and anyone that is a bank who did that service, who had me for it, be like, that was me. He's talking about me. So now I just change it to a different industry and it's like, well, in the healthcare industry and they're like, it's probably someone different. So that helps with the
Obfuscation.
obs.
So I saw a question in the Discord come in right at the end that somebody tagged me in there about B-Sides Charleston specifically. I will try to be there for the event itself as well. I think I have a talk submission for that. I don't think they've sent out notifications, but I will pop in at the event. It's going to be Saturday. So yeah, I'll have a little bit of free time to come around. And if I do, I'll have some extra. I've got BHI, I got boxes. Deb sends me boxes of BHIS and Recca stuff. So if you're gonna be at B-Sides Charleston, if you're gonna be at Simply CyberCon, if you're gonna be up at B-Sides Greenville, I'm gonna have stuff with me to give away. And on that note as well, if you go to that link, I'll drop it again because there's links to it. If you are gonna take uh, my training at Deadwood for offensive tooling for operators, I have one thing, custom custom event stickers that'll be given to students, never reprinted, never sold, got to take a class to get it. But as the big thing is I was able to twist Jason and Deb's arm a little bit is they sent me a box of all of the Recca comics printed to date. And I'm going to be raffling those off to one of my students, and I'll ship those to you after the event. So there's some information about that on the link I dropped in there as well. So Jason, whoever won today, they could take
Mhm.
my class and try to win again. Whoever
Okay.
guessed the right
Okay.
amount of people.
All right.
If you want double copies.
Yeah. Hey, here's a question, and we wrestle with this a lot, and it's the question on the screen is should I throw my hacking books away in lieu of videos and things like Hack the Box? And so I'm just gonna let Chris think about his answer, but we we think about this often of like, should we make an InfoSec survival guide when ChatGPT exists? Should we
Mm.
write a blog if ChatGPT exists? Should we create if ChatGPT exists? And what we're learning is that there's something about having a curated experience of knowledge instead of a what ChatGPT decides to give to you, and the validity of the knowledge because we were able to verify that it is true and we researched it, we peer reviewed it, we put it out. And so there's some trust involved in the printed material that you have in your hands versus things like video and Hack the Box and ChatGPT. So I would recommend keeping your books, especially when, all the power goes out because of, Volt Typhoon. If you haven't heard of that, just go ahead and look it up on CISA alerts. But anyway, Chris, what are your thoughts?
So I do have I probably should get rid of some books, but I always hang on to them. So if I take a class and there's material with it, or there's a handful of hacking books that I always go back to, the Red Team Field Manual, I always keep that handy and nearby for syntax memorization that I cannot do. So I don't recommend just throwing out your books if all these things exist. one thing that is constantly changing in the industry is tooling is constantly changing. One of the challenges that I face with my couple classes is I'll make the material, and then the person who puts out that tool will change, add, drop features. They'll change the entire syntax of the tool, or they'll just deprecate the tool completely and it goes away. So one of the challenges that you'll have, is particularly in the field of offensive activities, is if you get a book printed, there's no real way, unless those are products that organizations sell and they make revenue from, there's no way to guarantee that tool will continue to exist in 6 months, 12 months, continue to be maintained, and will continue to not go defunct just because of the changing landscape it attacks, right? So always keep a little bit of versatility. So keep your books, jump on these webcasts, learn some cool stuff. I wouldn't throw them out though.
Yeah. So one of the things I just put into the chat is our offensive security cheat sheets that we created that we released about a month or two ago. And the
Ooh,
thing
I
about
did one of those.
Chris did do one of these. And so the thing
I
about the
did,
cheat
yeah.
sheets is that we were like deciding should we print this or should we not print this? And just like Chris said, the tool changes, adjusts, revises. And so we wanted to have the flexibility of you being able to download whatever the most current version of this is. So you can go ahead and download those cheat sheets and print them out, build your own book if you would like to. All right, Chris, other questions? I have a question for you. This is a Jason Blanchard question for Chris Traynor.
Ooh.
Why do you like to teach?
Oh, that's really good. So a couple things for that is, as this webcast kind of shows, I like to tell stories, right? Uh, so when I try to learn something new, particularly in security and stuff like that, I never get it quickly. It never really clicks for me quickly. I like technical stuff, but it's never something that I usually pick up if it's a new thing very quickly. So what I like to try to do is early in my career, when I needed that help to find new things, to understand how to do stuff, there wasn't really a environment that I was in, a company I was with, didn't have the ability to go to somebody and ask for those things to teach me without the underlying fear of it would be held against me of my employment. I'd be looked down as not knowing enough. I'd be lesser. So I'm trying to teach because I like to create a situation for the next person that so that they're not repeating the situation I was in, basically, right? And if I can tell stories along with that, I'll tell stories along with that, and hopefully make understanding this stuff a little bit easier.
Yeah. Yeah, the Deviant Olam videos I think were shared in the chat. And so if you haven't seen those, Deviant Olam, OLLAM, has a lot of videos on how to bypass security. He did a talk for Walrus Hacking Fest a few years ago that is still the most viewed video we've ever made in the history of Black Hills information security across. If you take every video that we've ever made and add them all up together, it still does not compare to the video that Deviant did at Wawa's Hacking Fest like in 2018. So it's a
That
really
sounds
good
like
video.
that sounds like a
Really?
challenge to all people
Oh
recording
yeah.
material
Yeah,
It's like
going
the
two
forward.
point something million, but I think if you added all our
Oh
videos
my
up, I don't
gosh.
know about that.
the
I,
50,000 people who subscribed to the Wild West Hacking Fest YouTube channel did so because of Deviant's video.
yeah, that's for sure.
100%. We'll probably be down to 42,000 after this gets put out there. People
Stop
have
with the
time.
self-deprecated humor,
Good
Chris. You're
grief.
fantastic at what you do. Stop it.
Well,
Sorry
look, you
people didn't
lower the
show
bar
up.
far enough and anything seems a success. So,
Where else does this show up in your life, Chris? All right.
everywhere. It's universal.
Universal.
Oh, also that Deviant Olam video, if you do get a chance to watch it, it just nonstop for like an hour shows you how to do breaking and entering, and you're like,
Mm.
how many people did we teach how to do breaking and entering with this?
Yeah,
It's
within scope.
fine. It's fine. Because
We
it
do have
rains
a
on the
we have a
wicked and the
physical
righteous.
we've got a physical environment. If you do ever come to Wawa's Hackerfest Deadwood, we set up
Yeah.
a series of doors with different types of locks that you
Mm.
can pick and stuff, pick or use other bypasses to try to get through them to win. I don't know if you win a prize, but you get the satisfaction of winning. And we do have people that do physical pen tests for us. They'll be there physically to show you the techniques to learn from. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
the door
prizes
lab. Go ahead,
We'll say
Deb.
the prize is the door opens. Like that's, and you get to walk through it. That's the
What's
prize.
behind door number 1, 2, 3? I forget how many doors there are.
Another
Is it at
door,
least 5?
actually.
There's the backside of
The
another
backs of
door,
another
right?
door.
Okay.
Uh, Chick said, "Can a person with an automotive mechanic background become good in pen testing?" So I'll give you real quick that CAN bus or that thing that's inside that automobile that does all the electronics, like being able to hack just that electronics, like where the world is going over the next 15 years with autonomous cars, like being able to hack the electronics of a car is a skill in itself. So if you're currently available to have a car in front of you, and you can hook things into that car, learn to start hacking the car in front of you because autonomous cars are going to start getting hacked as well. So Chris, what are your thoughts on people with a mechanics background being pen testers? And then Deb, your thoughts,
I
because
think
you have
it's
a whole
a
I
family.
have thoughts. I have
Mhm.
thoughts.
it's a very good way to come into the field.
Yeah.
So you hear there's is it the survival guide, or it's one of our other little magazines that we've put out in the past where people tell their stories of how they got into security, and you'd be surprised at
Mhm.
the completely unrelated fields that people come into, and they're
Mhm.
very, very good at their jobs.
I think it's an early issue
I'm
of
not
prompt, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Mm.
I'm not gonna say his name directly on here because I don't know if he'd want me to. But I've had a good buddy of mine. He was a high school football teacher or coach, and over many years ago started asking me security questions, and now he does digital forensics and incident response, and he's very good at it.
Mm.
Um, and very good person to learn from. Eventually, I'll twist his arm far enough to do some talks and workshops and stuff like that. But you
Mhm.
can come from all different types of backgrounds into this field and apply that knowledge successfully to one of the facets here.
Mhm. One of our testers was a bartender. One of them was a chef.
One of
Yeah.
them, I believe, was a security guard at a gold mine
Mhm.
before this.
A gold
Yeah.
mine.
Yeah, at an
Interesting.
actual physical gold mine that
Yeah.
shut down. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, Root Beer brings up a really good point. He says mechanics do a lot of problem solving, which translates to pen testing. That's 100% facts. My husband, well, my family owns an automotive repair shop, and I was in the industry for 20 years. And I can tell you there's a lot of mental gymnastics that go into figuring out the problems of a car. So my husband's always saying he needs more engineers that do just problem solving to figure out the problems of the car. So if you're making the switch from mechanic to infosec, I think you're going to do well here.
Oh yeah, that's a really good point there, Deb, because you do wind up. I'm only mildly knowledgeable about cars and engines, enough to
Mhm.
keep the Jeep going,
Yeah.
but yeah, you will run into almost every engagement you get on. There's going to be some kind of challenge, like some of the stories that we just told over the last hour
Mhm.
about you get challenged by an employee or you run up against a technical issue. You've got to figure out your way around it within a certain amount of time, right? And be aware of the time you have with a person's vehicle or the time you
Mhm.
have within a person's environment, right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Mm. All right. So thank you so much for joining us today. What we'll do to wrap up is say, we'd love for you to hire us. We don't always say that, but we'd love for you to hire us at Black Hills Information Security. And so if you and your organization needs a pen test or an active SOC or any of the services that we provide, we would love to do that for you. Like we would love to help you with the problems that you have, help you find solutions in the best way we possibly can. It helps us stay in business, which helps us do this. And I'm not saying we need help staying in business, but it is 2025 and every company needs a little help staying in business. And so if you ever need our assistance, please reach out. We'd love to help you. And that's about it. Deb, what are your any final thoughts for today?
Oh, final thoughts. Well, it's usually there's a lot of noise out there, and we always appreciate that you spend your time with us. And we just really appreciate you supporting each other and us. And what was it? Take care of yourself and each other. That was what's his name from? What's the show? Dang it. Take care of
Ricka,
yourself
ricka,
and each
what?
other. That's what he
Sounded
would
like a
say.
really good quote till you
It
couldn't
is a
remember the
great quote, but
show.
I forgot. Ugh. Anyway, take care of
You're gonna be
yourself and
falling
each
asleep
other.
tonight. Like,
I
I
know.
can't believe I
Take care of
forgot that in
yourself
front of
and
all
each
these people.
other.
If Deb starts posting over and over again in Discord at 11:48 tonight,
I
it's because
am.
she remembered what she was trying to source it to.
Yeah, you guys were no help either. I didn't really give you much to go off of. But
Someone said Jerry Springer. Was it
yes,
Jerry
it's
Springer?
Jerry Springer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. See,
would've
thank you
been-
guys. Yeah, see,
Yeah.
take care of yourself and each other. There you go.
All
And
right,
wash
Ryan. Any final thoughts from Ryan before he kills it with fire?
Bottle it up. Ask for help.
Bottle it up. Don't ask for help. Set it on
Don't-
fire.
I
That
said,
is what we
don't-
heard, Ryan. We heard bottle it up, don't ask for help.
That's what I heard too.
Ryan is not a registered and licensed psychiatrist. We do not endorse his opinions.
Oh, Jesse said he
your
did say
mental
ask for help.
well-being. But he does like lighting things on fire. So I think
Yes.
Jason, you can give that order now.
All right,
Yes.
Ryan, let's kill it. Let's kill
Kill
it with
it.
fire.
Kill
And
it with fire,
all of us
please.
have dreams.